Tonight, government beats retreat, commits to reconstitute substantive KNUST Governing Council by Friday, terminating the work of the much criticized interim council 7 days after it was controversially sworn in.
Government requested the Chancellor of the University, Otumfuo Osei Tutu, to lead the next steps in reconstituting the University Council in accordance with the University Statute and relevant laws.
We have reactions from agitating teacher unions and hear from the minority in Parliament who are tonight demanding the resignation of the Education Minister.
All those who endorse it must go home. That will include the Honorable Minister for Education, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, and Professor Kwesi Yankah.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
Top Story is always brought to you by Bond, CIMG Savings and Loans Company of the Year, Gasem Cement, the Nation Builder, Vodafone, the Future's Exciting Ready, and Nationwide Medical Health Insurance, Best Health Insurance Company of the Year at the 2018 Ghana Insurance Awards, and its CEO awarded Woman of Excellence at the Ghana Insurance Awards. Now, Ghana government is tonight beating a retreat under pressure from teacher unions, student associations, and civil society. The heavily criticized interim governing council of the KNUST will by this Friday cease to exist. The president had just last week dissolved the governing council of the KNUST in the wake of the student rioting. The president put in place an interim council which was giving a 3-month mandate to resolve the impasse and return the school to normalcy. But it is now clear that that interim council, which was just sworn in last week Thursday, will only last a week. An emergency meeting with teacher unions, in fact, to be very specific, the University Teachers Association and government, resolved to reconstitute a substantive council. In fact, Asantehene Otumfuo Osei Tutu II, who is the Chancellor of the KNUST, had also summoned top government officials, including the Minister in charge of tertiary education, to Venture Palace earlier in the day. John News understands that Otumfuo had demanded the immediate scrapping of the interim council. We have a statement from government. My colleague Nancy Emefa-Dradosi was at that meeting between government and UTAG and joins us with details. So what did they decide?
All right, so Evans, right after this, when they decided to have the joint press conference, they resolved that, first of all, the school will be reopened on the 8th of November and teaching will begin as soon as possible. Also, by Friday, the interim board will also be dissolved and a new one be reconstituted, as you exactly said. And
listen to the information minister who was there, correct? He was part of the meeting. Who else was there, by the way, for government?
Senior Minister Osafu Mafu was there. Kandapa was also, Brian Champon was also there. We have National Accreditation Board also there, and I think NTC was also there.
Today's meeting has been very fruitful, and we are happy.
These measures were immediately necessary to restore order while preparing for a reopening of the university. The council was dissolved because government holds it ultimately responsible for the failure to adequately manage internal matters of the university, leading to a breakdown of law and order. The interim measures were necessary to protect lives and property. Now, today, Monday, 29th of October 2018, government requested the Chancellor of the University, Otumfuo Osei Tutu, to lead the next steps in reconstituting the University Council in accordance with the University Statute and relevant laws. Council is expected to be reconstituted by Friday, November 2nd, 2018. The reconstituted council will then take over from the interim governing council. Government has subsequently engaged with UTAG and updated the association accordingly of the developments that I've mentioned earlier. UTAG has undertaken to restore services, cooperate in resolution efforts, and encourage other stakeholders to join resolution efforts. In accordance with the earlier directive by the President of the Republic, the university is expected to reopen by November 8, 2018 for normal academic work to resume.
So putting this in context, remember that this interim council, which was constituted just last week, Friday, was given a period of 3 months to work. They were supposed to reopen the school in 14 days. I think that is what is stunning. They're sticking to that. But we now know that once and as the Upon Nkrumah mentioned there, once the substantive governing council is reconstituted by Friday, the work of the interim council sort of becomes moot. It ceases to exist automatically. I know they met UTAG. UTAG has been very vociferous on this. In fact, their chapter on KNUST campus last week withdrawn services. Yeah. And we had a sneak peek of their leader, just what we played there, saying that they're happy with this.
Well, at the meeting, Evans, let me just say that it was an hour and 30 minutes meeting. They came out the first time and decided to talk about what else to say when they go back to the meeting. So I think the meeting went in a break for about 2 times. But when they finally met, they said that they were impressed and that they just hope that government will stick to the decisions that have been taken and announced. And so they want government to go back to. But for them, they're satisfied and they're willing to go back and work.
Okay, let's speak live now to the president of UTAG, who joins us on the telephone line right now, Dr. Eric Opoku-Mensah. Doc, thank you very much for your time here on Top Story. From what I hear from my colleague, you are happy with the outcome of today's meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Evans, and thank you for having me on your program, and greetings to your listeners. Yes, UTAG is happy with the outcome of the meeting for these simple reasons. One, Professor Obiri Danso, the Vice Chancellor of Kwame Nkrumah University in Science and Technology, is getting back on the council in his position as the Chief Executive of the university. And that, at this moment, government is going to replace its representatives on the council. And, you know, as you rightly heard from the press release by the Honorable Kwadwo Upon Nkrumah, the various unions are going to bring their reps by Wednesday, and by Friday the new council will be sworn into office. So as you rightly indicated, that ends the work of the IMC. Okay. We are happy with this, and we feel that there has been quite a demonstration of maturity in this whole deliberation, and we are asking all our sister unions and KNUST to end the intended strike action. In actual fact, KNUST really didn't begin a strike. It was just a withdrawal of their teaching service, but the students are not even in school. So we are mindful of everything that we are doing, and National also never really declared a strike. Of course, we're initiating steps for our various campuses to solidarize. So at this point, together with our other sister unions, GAWA, TEWU, and FUSAC, Senior Staff Association, I think that they have done extremely well in coming together to support this cause. And I think that the most singular appreciation goes to the king of the Ashanti Kingdom, Otumfuo Osei-Tutu, for his intervention as the Chancellor of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And I'm happy that together with government, we've reiterated the fact, as contained in the press release, that Asante-Hene should take steps in reconstituting the council according to the act establishing the university, KNUST. The Chancellor has the sole responsibility of appointing the chair of the governing council. And I hope through this meeting that we've had, steps are going to be taken to make sure that the council is properly constituted and they take the governance of the university as stipulated in the act establishing the university, so that day-to-day activities of the university would come back to normal. So we are happy about what has happened, and that we thank government for a show of maturity, and we also want to thank all sister unions for their great solidarity and support. We appreciate them.
So fundamentally, I know your biggest challenge, and in fact when you got upset, was when they removed the Vice Chancellor. But from today's meeting, it appears there's some agreement that this reconstituted council will have him on. And I think that's where your appreciation is, really, correct?
Yes. So Professor Obiri Danso is going to be there. And as you can clearly see, once government is replacing its representatives on the council, then certainly it's kind of being reconstituted. So certainly the old members of the council, whether those unions are going to keep the same people there, that is up to the unions, because they have a choice to determine who should represent them.
But certainly the Vice Chancellor,
according to the Constitution of the council.
But certainly the Vice Chancellor will be on this reconstituted council.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was what I were originally asking for.
And you mentioned, and in fact, both yourself and the government statement mentions Otumfuo. I understand that Otumfuo, before your meeting, had met top government officials, including the minister in charge of tertiary education, and had insisted something close to your position, that the interim council should be scrapped, and a substantive one put in place.
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, so the Otumfuo is going to lead this process, from what government says, correct?
Exactly. These were the issues that we agreed upon.
Okay. So does that mean that he will, when you say lead the process of, what is he exactly going to do? Appoint? Because government appoints, and the other bodies also the same according to the law.
So far as I'm concerned, my understanding is that Otumfuo has the responsibility of appointing the chair of the governing council. And I think that the government certainly has a hand in those who represent government. So I think that certainly to be the responsibility of the king, together with government, to decide, apart from the chair, the other members who would represent government on the council. And the rest would certainly be produced by the unions to represent them on the council.
And so what this means is there isn't going to be the strikes that we had had on KNUST campus that will end, and then the threats also sort of roll them back.
Yes, with this understanding, certainly I think that we just did not want to embark on a strike for the sake of just going on strike. I think that these were the issues that we're discussing, and I think the government has shown maturity and respect, in reference to what should be the case, and we are all happy about it. So, KNUST is going to call off the withdrawal of teaching service, and all the plans that were being made to solidarize with them are going to end. So that is that, and I think that we're going to begin that process from this evening.
I'm grateful that you joined us, Dr. Eric Opoku-Mensah, and you want to join us on PMX because he will be on as well, talking about this. Because listen, apart from what has just happened today, the substantive matters that led to the protest have to still be resolved, and we'll be delving into that in greater detail if you join us at 9 p.m. on PM Express on television. How this new arrangement fixes that problem, which prompted the protest that led to the violence in the first place. Now, today on the campus of KNUST, another union, the Teacher and Education Workers Union TEU, they have been protesting. And on the line with me right now is the chairman of TEU, KNUST chairman of TEU, Charles Arthur. Hello, Mr. Arthur.
Yeah, hello, my brother.
Great. What's your? I know you've been protesting today. In fact, you had told us earlier today that you will not stop protesting until your vice chancellor is restored and the substantive council is in place. What's your reaction to the decision reached today after the meeting between government and TEU?
Government and UTAG.
Government and UTAG, pardon me, yes.
Yes, thank you very much. What happened today between the government and UTAG is the same thing that happened today at Menchia Palace, where we meet the chancellor of the university, and we all welcome that decision.
Oh, so does that mean that we are going to go back and work? You're going to roll back the strike that you've called?
Exactly the same, because the chancellor made it clear that he is meeting with the some ministers, Professor Kojo Yanka and the National Security Minister, and he directed that the government should withdraw its members if he's fed up with them. But other unions or other constituencies can decide to retain their members. And therefore, the government should submit the names by Wednesday. So Friday, he will reconstitute the council, and then everything goes on. In fact, he even asked the university management under the direction of Professor Brida, so if they are ready to open the school. And he said that yes, the school can be reopened on Sunday, 4th November 2018. So we all welcome that. So
the demonstration you call for tomorrow, will that still come off?
No, once the chancellor has said that, and it is in tandem with exactly what we want, we think that is the best, and we'll call it off and tell our members to go back to work.
But how do you propose that this new substantive committee resolve this, the fundamental issues that led to the protests and the violence that the students had been complaining all about, the brutalities, the concerns about converting the single-sex halls to mixed halls? What's your proposal to fixing that?
Well, the chancellor also spoke on that. He said that he will get some retired justices to look at that. And we think that that will be the independent body that we welcome that, so that there will be no interference from any quarters. So if Chancellor goes ahead establishing that independent body comprises of retired judges, we will accept that and then go by that.
So that is so. At this meeting with the Otumfuo indicated he'll be setting up another committee led by former judges to go to investigate the concerns.
Yes, that's what he said.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's Charles Arthur. He is chairman of TEU at KNUST. Also on the line with us right now is Information Minister Designate Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah. Mr. Oppong-Nkrumah, thank you for your time here on Top Story. We just heard from both TEU and UTAG, all of them withdrawing their strike. TEU had indicated they will be demonstrating tomorrow. They say they are calling that off in the wake of the announcement that you signed. But going forward, though, what happens to the substantive issues of concern? How will that be resolved? We're hearing that Otumfuo is going to set up a committee that will look into that separately. Is that your understanding also?
Evans, good evening, and thanks for the opportunity. So we continue to make progress on this matter. Let me just give a quick background. The situation on campus degenerated totally, and government had to intervene, as we mentioned in the statement, by first of all, shutting down the university, sending military and police onto campus, which ordinarily wouldn't happen, putting in place a curfew, dissolving the council, putting in place an interim council. We are at a stage now where we can quicken efforts towards restoring normalcy. And at this stage, following today's meeting with the Chancellor, we have agreed that the Chancellor will lead the next steps in constituting a new council for the university. Now, in accordance with the law, there are various parties that contribute to the council. So each one of these parties is going to take a look at their nominees and come to the table with names of persons for this new council or this reconstituted council. Now, this council will then have the job of following through the next steps, which include getting a proper investigation completed, knowing whether sanctions will apply to one person or the other, and taking the next steps, because everything that is being done in accordance with the law. And I think that, like you're hearing all the parties say, this is good news because we are continuing to make progress on this matter.
It begs the question about this interim council that was just sworn in last week, Thursday. It hasn't even started work, and yet by Friday it will cease to exist. What was the point of it in the first place then?
So all the measures that were introduced were necessary emergency measures to restore law and order and to bring the situation under control. I'm not sure that anybody who saw those video clips of what was going on KNUST campus was excited, not at all. And government could not sit back unconcerned or aloof. And so it was important for government to take the full set of emergency measures, including sending military on campus, which is something we don't ordinarily do, dissolving the council, putting in place an interim council, putting a curfew on campus. All of these were measures that we needed to take at the time to ensure that the situation didn't further degenerate. Post all of these and upon engagement with the various stakeholders, there's clarity on the way forward, and that is what we have been able to, in our engagements throughout today, update all parties on. If you read our statement, we said that when we met UTAG, we updated them on where we were. They are pleased with where we were, and they'll be contributing to the resolution efforts. And they're also even speaking to other stakeholders. I heard Dr. Eric speaking to you a few minutes ago. They'll also be contributing to other groups and getting them to understand that this is the roadmap forward, and all of us need to join those resolution efforts. Our objective remains that we want to ensure that the K University is reopened, there's law and order, academic work can go on once again.
I mean, this new resolution to form a substantive council, why didn't you do that last week? I mean, for we've lost a week, in essence, before we are coming to this point. Some may say government is simply bowing to the pressure from teacher unions, civil society, that you've received in the last few days.
I think we are forgetting where we are coming from. We were all watching on television and on the networks as the situation was degenerating. Government had to go in and introduce a full set of emergency measures, and I've gone through them with you this evening. There cannot be a time when the university is hanging without a council. It was important that once that council was dissolved, an interim council was put in place to assume their powers and to start the roadmap. Today we are at a point where, after engaging with the Chancellor, we can now walk a path to
but that council, interim council, was given 3 months. It didn't even work at all.
They have been given a 3-month period. Now, I don't want to go into the full details of some of the conversations we have had today. Indeed, I'm hoping that this will be one of our final engagements today, because there are many things that ought to be done. We are hoping that by Friday we can meet these deadlines. Many of these groups are going back to get their names from their membership, etc., and join the exercise to constitute a new council. So we've given the interim council a 3-month period, worst case scenario, within which they can work. If at any point in time, and that's what we are doing now, we're able to quicken efforts and bring a quicker resolution to this matter, I think that we can all be proud of ourselves.
And what about the substantive matters, though, that prompted this? The concerns of the students, concerns of the lecturers, etc., that really is at the heart of the protest. What's the thinking going forward and how that is resolved?
Indeed, investigations have commenced into the various reports of the various parties on what caused what we all saw on our screens, which we are not proud of. Now, all of those preliminary investigations will be handed over to the new council when it's constituted, so that the new council will go through a process of bringing final determination to the matters, the substantive matters, and then also helping bring direction on who's culpable, what sort of sanctions need to be applied, to ensure that such things are not repeated. But I think one of the exciting things is that in accordance with the directive of the President, by November 8th, we are hopeful that we'll be able to reopen the university for academic work to resume.
Your friends from the minority today held a press conference addressed by the minority leader. This is the fundamental call they made. Just a second, listen to Honorable Haruna Iddrisu.
Suffice it to say, then we can stretch it. So it means that all those who endorse it must go home. That will include the Honorable Minister for Education, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, and Professor Kwesi Yanka, who has been Dean of Students before, at least at my time in Lagos. So if the policy is that if there is this conflict and a conversion is leading to a crisis, and the Vice Chancellor can be held responsible, the Minister for Education, and in particular the Minister responsible for tertiary education, must be held responsible.
That's Haruna Iddrisu, Mr. Nkrumah, demanding that the Minister, Education Minister and Minister responsible for tertiary education, both of them should lose their jobs on the back of what has happened. Your reaction?
I mean, we're in a democracy and the minorities are allowed to have their say. You heard the students themselves say that their major challenge principally had to deal, or the immediate cause of this had to do with what they call brutality. That's their version. The school authorities have another version. They also have another version. That's why it's important that we don't play politics with it. We go through the process and allow a properly constituted body to get to the bottom of the matter, establish exactly what it was, and determine whatever sanctions need to be applied. I think it's been a good day so far, and we're continuing to make progress in the KNUST matter.
Just a second. I just been joined on the line by your colleague, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, former Deputy Education Minister. It was part of the press conference that was done today by the minority. Mr. Ablakwa, thank you for your time here on Top Story. You at the press conference, you called for the heads of the Education Minister and the tertiary Minister responsible for tertiary education, but we're hearing that substantively there's been progress today. TEU is withdrawing their strike warnings and the strike on KNUST campus. UTAG is doing same, and there is going to be a reconstituted substantive governing council by Friday. Doesn't that address all the concerns that you have?
Well, thank you very much. Regards to my brother Kojo on the other line, and good evening to you and our distinguished listeners. It is important to place our call for the heads of the two ministers in context. The context is that we argued that if you are going to blame Professor Obridan, so the Vice-Chancellor, for the disturbances and the impasse and hold him accountable, in that same breath, the Ministers of Education who endorsed the policy and praised him for the implementation, the Minister of Education addressing the 52nd congregation of the KNUST on July 15th, endorsed the policy, commended the Vice-Chancellor. The Minister of State in charge of tertiary education on the 8th of September 2018 on a tour of KNUST campus commended the Vice-Chancellor and asked other universities to emulate his example and said that the Vice-Chancellor's policy fits into a national policy. This is recorded by your network. It's online. So we argued that if it is the case that you want to hold Professor Obridan so liable because of this policy and the fallouts of the implementation, then the Ministers of Education, who also championed the policy, endorsed it and gave credence to the style and approach of the implementation, which, as we have said, was a very poor one. It was not all-embracing. It was not consultative. It was not engaging. You didn't involve key stakeholders. Then it is only proper, logically, that then the two ministers must also be asked to take the fall. So it is within that context that we made the call at our press conference today.
Okay. Mr. Ponkrumah, fair point? Hello, Mr. Ponkrumah.
Yes, Evan.
Fair point?
No, I think he's explained the context within which they made the call. But I think all of us can agree that under the circumstances of what happened last week, Monday, some necessary steps needed to be taken. We continue to make progress even as at today. And we are, I don't think my brother Sami disagreed, but we are all expectant that we'll be able to bring final resolution to this matter. I'm sure all of us have a common objective, that the KNUST can reopen, academic work can resume, persons who were culpable in the violent acts of destruction will be held accountable. So I think that for the various parties, we're actually not differing in our views. No,
but he makes a point about the substantive issue that led to this is the mixed hall conversion to that was a single hall conversion to mixed hall, and he says that if the vice chancellor was removed because of the fundamental issues of the policy implementation, the approach, then the education minister and the tertiary minister who backed this must also go.
Evans, I've just heard him explain the context within which he spoke.
That's the context.
Yes, and I'm saying that within that context, I do not see much of a difference in the positions that are being expressed by various parties. Indeed, today, while I heard many networks report that the Vice-Chancellor has been sacked or the Vice-Chancellor has been removed, the letter that was put out, if you read the text clearly, the letter signed on 25th, which was Thursday, essentially asked him to hand over to the Pro-Vice-Chancellor temporarily until further instructed, to allow the interim council to have unfettered access until such a time that we come back to normalcy. So if my brother explains that he spoke in a context, and you read the letter, I'm sure the context is understandable to everybody.
Now, you've raised a very important point about the Vice-Chancellor, and one of the things, and we need to clear up quickly, is what will be his status by Friday when this new reconstituted substantive governing council is put in place. I want you gentlemen to hold the line briefly for me. Let me take this quick break. When we return, we'll delve into that on Newsnight, which starts right now.